Wargamers, I'm Lee and you're watching 360 Wargaming. Hi guys, so we're back and working on the village market diorama. Now what I've got here is I've got a cheap photo frame, taken all the glass out, and I've got a nice foam base, and the foam base is from Army Painter's Game Master range, and I'm finally getting a chance to use this. It's a nice thick piece of foam. We're going to have the stable that we built in the last episode here, and then we're going to have some market stalls in front and a few villages and things from various different ranges. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to take the roof off of the stable, and I've got a little piece here that you can probably just about see, and it's just a little trapdoor that I just want to add that little extra element inside so that when you're looking through the door or through the window you can see that in there. So what I'm going to do first, because I want to cut that out and recess it, I'm just going to draw a line around it, just get the stable where I want it, and just come in, draw that line around it. In fact, what I'll do is I'll get the stable out of the way, and then I can just hold it with my thumb and just draw around it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and cut this out, and after that I've got a foam roller that I printed out on my 3D printer, and I'm just going to come in, and that's just going to give us a nice cobblestone effect. But first things first, I'm going to get the knife that came with the Game Master range and cut that out. I'll just be back in a few moments. Right, so I've got the knife ready. The knife did come with the Game Master range, and it was a really good set, and if you've looked at the review of that you'll see everything that did come with it, including this little trapdoor that we're going to be using on this piece, and that's the piece that we've just drawn around, which unfortunately it doesn't want to focus on. There we go. So just to add an extra piece with some detailing around the edge, I'm just going to recess just in there. So first things first, as you can see, this is a nice thick piece of foam, and it came, this is one that I cut down to size, and it came with 2 large pieces and 4 smaller pieces, and the smaller pieces weren't big enough for the photo frame, so I had to use one of the big ones, but there's still a lot of foam left in that set. And then I'm going to get the chance later on to use some of the paints that came with it. They do their own range of dungeon themed paints, and it even comes with a can of foam safe primer, which we're going to be trying out in a minute, and we'll see. Hopefully it won't damage the foam because it is designed for it, so we'll see what effect that has, and I'm just going to test it on an offcut first. But first let's get this cut out. So nice sharp knife, and like I said, this is the one that came with the kit, and I know you can get these from the pound shop discount stores and things, but it is a nice sharp one. I don't think I've ever had one that sharp that I've picked up cheaply. And I'm just going to come in with a modelling tool, scoop that out. Should have had everything ready for this. This might have been quicker that way. There we go. Pull it out. I don't want to go too deep because I do want it just to sit just inside and not be too recessed. What I might have to do is fill it up with a little bit of green stuff just to backfill it so that it doesn't sit too low. We'll come back in just a minute once that's done, and we'll see the finish, and I'll get it glued in ready. Right, we're back again. We've got the hole cut out for our trapdoor. But before we go that into place, we're going to go over it with this foam roller. Like I said before, it is one that I've printed out on a 3D printer. It is available on Thingiverse, and if I can find it again, I will just drop the link in the description below. And then what we're going to do, if you can see this is a quick prime with the foam safe spray primer. And I didn't go deep enough with the foam roller on this side, so it has filled in some of the gaps, because you do need to press really hard with this foam. But I did this side, and you can still see the lines and things, and it'll just give a nice coat ready to start with the dungeon base colours and highlights and shades and things on top afterwards. So I'm going to get started. I'm going to have to put a lot of pressure on with this foam roller. I'm just going to turn it away from me, and I'm going to line it up on the edge, and it is curved in slightly on the sides, just so that you can create those joins and it doesn't give a flat edge, but it does require a lot of pressure. So I'm going to come along and push down. So as you can see, I am having to go back over it just to make sure that it does get that detail pushed in there, and hopefully it doesn't cause too many mixes and matches. So I think, you can't really see it because of the lighting, I think we do have, let's see if we can get it to focus again, there we go. Yeah, so I think we do have bits where we've gone over it, and rather than leaving the texture, it's actually created a little shadow, so we've got two pieces rather than one. So I think what I might have to do is look at another option for this, maybe go with an option of putting the detail in with a pen and a pencil rather than with the foam roller. So we're back in a few moments when we've looked at what other options we've got to get the details on there. So yeah, just stay with me and we'll see what happens. Right guys, I'm back, and what we've done is flip the piece of foam over. I've recut the hole. Rather than cutting it this time, I've just pushed it down so it just sits just as low as we want it to. And what we're going to do is we're going to go with the age-old drawing on of the cobblestones. So as I'm sure you've seen this technique before, it's just a case of going on, drawing your cobblestones to the side that you want, size that you want even, and then carrying on doing that all the way up and getting that across all of the foam. Now, it is a fairly large sheet, so this is going to take me some time. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a few now so that you can see, and it is just a case of I'm going to come in at the edge and draw a nice stone look, just like that, and then the same again. I'm going to fill in these gaps. I'm just going to go increasingly, different sizes, some larger, some smaller. Because it is set in a fantasy time, they're not all going to be the same size, they're not all going to be the same shape, and we're going to have completely different sizes. And I am going to try and join them all together in places, just so that when it does come to pushing the details down later, it's a lot easier to do. So, as you can see, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do it across all of this foam, and then we're going to come back, rather than making you watch me sit and do this for the next hour or so, we're going to fast forward, maybe play a little clip in the meantime, and when you come back you will be looking at a finished base. Okay guys, and we're back. So it's taken me about an hour and a half to get to this point, but thanks to the power of video editing, it's doing just a few seconds for you guys. So I've drawn out all the cobblestones that I want on here. And now it's time to add a bit of texture to these. Now normally what you'll see people do is they'll use some balled up tinfoil. Unfortunately I don't have any tinfoil, so an alternative method of doing this is just by getting a good old rock from your garden. This has literally just been picked up from my garden, so you can see there's still dirt on it, so we're going to have to make sure that this is clean before we put any primer down. But it's just going to be a case of taking the rock and rolling it across the cobblestones that we've got. Just add some detail, some dents, some holes and things into the rocks, into the cobblestones that we've got there. And that just adds a little bit of depth to your piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this across all the cobblestones. We're going to use different sides so not everything is the same. And then after that it's going to be time to glue in that trapdoor. So I'll just quickly jump to this being finished and then you'll see where we are now. Right, so it's had a little bit of texture added to it with that rock. So we're now going to go ahead and we're just going to glue this down with PVA. What I'm going to do first on the back of this, I'm just going to grab a file and I'm just going to scuff it up a little bit so that it takes the glue better, and just adds a little bit to how well it will adhere to the foam underneath. If I can just find a nail file or something, rather than using the usual one because it's a little bit smooth. Just give me a few seconds and I'll be right back. We've got a hobby file here, it's just a flat one, and like I said, we're just going to scuff the back up a little bit, just so that we've got a rough section. Put some scratches into it, and that's just to give something for the PVA glue that we're going to come across. If you look there, there's some nice scratches on that. I'm just going to put PVA glue down here, and then take our trapdoor and just push it down into place. I'm just going to let the PVA push out at the sides. I'm just going to fill some of those gaps and just give it a closer bond. So we're just going to leave that to dry, and then hopefully we'll be able to prime it and bring you the next stages. So I'll be back in a few minutes. Thanks again to the power of video editing and the internet. And we'll be back in a few minutes, and then we'll be looking at this primed and ready to go to the next stages. Right, so here we are. The cobblestone base is now primed black. Now there are some small gaps where the primer didn't catch it, but that was more down to my technique than the actual primer itself. I didn't want to put too much on it. So we're going to start with getting this dungeon base colour over the top of that. And like I said, this is from Army Painter's Game Master range, and this box set really did come with everything. Came with the foam, came with various paints for both dungeon and cavern effects. So it comes with some greys and browns, but obviously it's going to be a cobblestone, so we want to do greys on this particular one. But like I've said, it did come with a lot of things, including a paint palette and various paint brushes, this one being the large dry brush, which is what we're going to use for this. So if we give the paint a good shake, and we are going to use quite a bit of this, but it does come in a decent sized bottle. So let's get some, give it a good shake, and then we'll get some in the palette and onto the base, onto the cobblestones. Now we are using a dry brush, and we'll use as usual dry brushing techniques for getting most of the paint off and working from there with it. So we do want quite a strong overbrush on these, rather than a lighter dry brush. And then what I'll probably do once we've got these grey is come and pick some out in different shades of grey and different colours, maybe some blues and things, just to give it a little bit to break up the actual colour on there. We all know stones aren't all exactly the same colour, so it'll be worth doing just to make it stand out a little bit. So I'll get this done and then we'll come back and look at the next steps. So that's some of the dungeon base colour over the top, and as you can see it's picked up all that detail that we put in, the dints and things that we put in with the rock earlier in the video. So now we're going to come in and we're going to add some colour to some of these cobblestones. We've got a few different colours here. I've got some from Games Workshop, some Bugman's Glow and some Snakebite Leather, a couple more over here from Games Workshop, and then the cavern highlights and the cavern effects from the Game Master range from Army Painter. And we're just going to do a mix, pick out a random 2 or 3 for each colour, and just colour that in, just to add some detail to it. And then when we add the wash and the highlights over the top, it'll just give a little diversity to the cobblestones and make it stand out a little bit more. So as normal, just going to put a little bit in this palette. I'm not going to water this down like I would if I was painting a miniature, because it's not going to obscure much of that detail if we do get thin enough coats on there. And there we go. So I'm just going to pick a few out at random, and I'm going to do varying different size bricks so that they're not all the same size, and I am going to spread them out across the whole of this base. Right, so there you go. As you can see, we've added some nice spots of colour, and there's not a lot of it that's gone on there. We've not put loads of different colours on, we've not painted all of them, we've just picked out the odd brick here and there that's just going to make that little bit of difference, that when we come in and put the wash over the top and dry brush it, it's going to bring all those colours together, so it looks like they've all been worn and weathered at the same time, but not all come from the same place. We could have gone through and picked more out, but it would have just been tedious and it would have taken a long time. And I think just a few to highlight the fact that it's not all the same cobblestones that have been used will make a world of difference. So the next step is going to come in and we're going to paint this wood here, and we're going to use the Snakebite Leather again, I think, that we used previously, just to get that colour on there. So let's get on with that now while the rest of them dries, and we still have it on our palette, so that's fine, we can still use it. And it will give us a nice colour, and we'll highlight that and shade it, and we'll shade it with a brown instead of the black wash that's going to go on the rest of it. And then we can pick out the other details and things, and that's just to make it look a little bit more like wood rather than stone, because it is a wooden hatch that's on there, and the metal pieces will be picked out later with most likely with the Games Workshop colour. So we'll just get on and get this painted, and then we'll leave it to dry for a while and pop back. Right, so as you can see, that's the first layer of the brown done on the trapdoor. So like I said before, we're just going to set that to one side to dry now. And while we do that, while we wait for that to dry, why don't you take a minute, drop by the channel and subscribe, give the video a like and click that bell notification so that next time we do put a video up, you'll get a notification of that. It does help the channel grow, keep people coming to see us, and it does allow us to create more content and new things for yourselves. Okay, so the cobblestones have all had time to dry now, they're dry to touch. So we're going to come in and we're going to give everything a wash with Agrax Earthshade, just to give it a dark, dirty look, before we come back in and highlight those grey areas. Just give it a dry brush of grey all over, and I'll just unify all the colours on the piece. So it's not a massive brush, so it might take a while to get this done. In fact, it might be worth grabbing a bigger brush, but we'll start off with this one and we'll see what happens from there. We're going to start up in the top corner and just all over. It's just so we can get some of this dirt colour into the recesses. And like I said, you can get on those and it'll unify the colours a little bit on the ones that we've painted. So I'll be back with you in a few moments once this has all been given a coating of Agrax Earthshade. Right, and there we are, everything now has a coat of Agrax Earthshade over the top of it. I wouldn't recommend doing this yourself because it is a very expensive way to wash something, but I have 4 or 5 bottles of Agrax Earthshade, so I wasn't too scared about using these. If I was you and you're doing something like this, I would grab one of the tutorials from Blackmagic Craft on how to create your own black-brown washes, and I'll drop a link in the description below to Blackmagic Crafts. I know that's a very popular one. So there we are, and once again we're waiting for paint to dry. We're not going to sit and watch it because it'd be a little bit boring. So we'll be back in a few minutes and ready to dry brush that lighter grey over the top, just to bring the colours back up, lighten everything up so it's more like a marketplace and less like a dungeon. So the wash has had time to dry, so it's time to come in and we're going to do that dry brush over the top. I'm going to be using Dungeon Highlights from the Game Master range by Army Painter. I'm giving it a good shake up. I'm going to pop it onto my palette. And then coming with the dry brush, the same one that we used before, and I'm going to dab it in there. And then, as you'd normally do with dry brushing, I've got a paper towel here. I'm just going to get a lot of that off, and then just go nicely over the top, just to bring a bit of lightness back to it. Just because it's, like I said earlier, it's not a deep dark dungeon, it is a marketplace. There's going to be people wandering around. We're going to have some market stalls on there when we eventually get around to it. And add a little bit of life to it, rather than your usual type of dungeon that you normally see. So it's just a little bit something different. And I've mentioned before, this is a novelty for me because I don't usually get a chance to do fantasy. I know I've recently started a Blood Bowl team, and they are a fantasy team, but it is something different to Space Marines and Imperial Guardsmen like I usually paint. And certainly terrain wise, I've not done any terrain for a long time, so to be able to do something like this on this scale is testing my knowledge, my experience and my abilities and pushing it to that boundary. And I do suggest everyone has a go at something similar to this every now and again, just to push your boundaries, and maybe just to break up what you're painting, because if you're a Space Marine collector like I said I am, you know, it's painting a lot of Space Marine armour all one colour can become monotonous, and it can lead to hobby burnout. So throwing something like this in every now and again, or even alongside it, you know, I've still got Space Marines to paint, I've still got Blood Bowl players to paint, and alongside this at the minute I'm actually painting the Rogue Trader Star Striders, the Elucidium ones that came in the box set a couple of years ago, and that's just to give, you know, something different to paint. And we do need it every now and again, because the last thing you want is to paint the same thing for months and weeks on end and then get fed up of painting it and not want to finish what you're working on. And that's how we all end up with half-finished projects sat on shelves, and how the grey pile of shame grows, and then becomes uncontrollable and you don't want to do it. And you know, it unfortunately does lead to many people leaving the hobby, and that is not what anyone wants. You know, this is about it's a hobby about community and family, and certainly it's one of the things that we're trying to instill through 360 Wargaming is the family hobby element, and that everyone, you know, we're all friends, we're all helpful. And if you do have any questions for us, and any information that you want to gather, we're happy to help. You know, just drop us a message on our Facebook page, and I'll drop a link in the description below just for that. It's the whole reason we were created, you know, to give back to the community and the public and the people, and trying to bring everything to one place where you can just share your ideas, share your paintings, share your love of the game and the hobby. And it doesn't have to just be Warhammer or Games Workshop. It can be any of the game systems. You know, we're happy to hear about all of it, see photos, pictures, you know, what you're working on. And we'll always give you that support and criticism, and it will be constructive criticism that we give you. You know, have you tried this? You know, have you tried painting arties? You know, I myself 2 years ago, I was so scared to try so many different things, and thankfully the release of contrast paints is what got me back into painting. You know, to be able to just put one coat of colour down. And I'm sure I've said it on other videos, I was a painter that just did one coat. You know, I didn't believe in layers. I didn't see the purpose behind shading and highlighting. And you know, just over the last 2 years, my paintings come so far from what it was to what it now is. And I can't, you know, I can't tell you how happy I am. I was always one of those people that I saw all the fantastic artwork and I wanted to be able to paint like that. But at the same time, I was scared to try new techniques. I was scared to invest in expensive brushes. I was scared to put the effort in and, you know, try things a little bit different. But at the same time, I knew that in order for me to become a better painter, I had to do that. And the introduction of contrast paints allowed me to do that, to see what a difference shading made to a model, what, you know, on the tabletop. And I'll quickly bring one in from my contrast paint days. So this model here again is a 40k model. This was painted primarily with contrast paints, and that gave me the confidence to take things a step further. To I'm sure you've seen him, you know, our rogue trader leader, who was painted with nothing but standard city level paints, and it's been a massive transformation of my painting styles, painting abilities, and confidence with a paintbrush. So hopefully, you know, some of you will see that we've got a Facebook page, we've got a Facebook group, and you'll stop by and just have a chat with us and post what you're working on, so that we can hopefully give you guys that same confidence that I've built over the last 2 years. You know, certainly over the last 12 months since I started really focusing on 360 wargaming. So I'm nearly done with this now, so I'll stop jabbering on and we'll get the last of this dry brushing done, and hopefully you'll take the time to join the Facebook group and just check out the links in the description below on where to find us. You know, there's the website as well that you can post your photos on, your pictures. We do have a fantastic tool on there that's it's something that I've needed, especially recently, for remembering how I did my paint schemes. And it's just a little gallery, but it lets you tag sections of the model so that you can see what you've painted, what colours you've used and things. You can just tag colours on it on sections. And again, I'll drop a link in the description so that you can find it on the website. And I will say that you do need to be registered for the website for that, but the only information we take is your name and your email address, and you just pop yourself a password in, and that's just so you can come back and keep an eye on the work that you've done. And there are some extra features on there that let people like your photos and share them and things. It lets you share them to Facebook, but that's just in advance of some other features that we're going to be adding to the website to turn it into a social media platform in the near future. And that's just, again, it's just with the idea of sharing things with the public, with the community, and bringing everyone together. But yeah, I think that is just a little bit more over on this side, and I think I'm happy with that. And then it's just a case of finishing the fine details that we've got over here, the little metalwork and things. But yeah, I'll give that a few minutes to dry. It will only need a few minutes because, like you know, with dry brushing it doesn't take long at all. And then I'll come back in and do the metalwork, and then we're done. And once you check back in a couple of days, maybe a week or two, we'll hopefully have more of the work on this done. Like I said, we do have some models to go on here, some market stalls and things from Irongate Scenery, and yeah, there's lots to come for it. But I will say I'm really happy with the work that I've been able to get out of the set from Army Painter. It's been fantastic. Like I said, everything that was included in it, the brushes, the paints, the foam board definitely has allowed me to do this, and I don't think it's something I'd have been able to do without it. So yes, I will leave that to dry, and I will be back in a few minutes. I'll just give you a quick close-up of it so you can see where we are with it now. I'll be back in a few minutes picking out that metalwork. So it's now time to get the metalwork done, and I'm just gonna, I've already got it on my palette ready, so just thin it down a little bit. And then nice and quick, I'll bring it up to the camera so you can see. It's just a case of going over that metalwork with, in this case, lead belcher silver from Citadel's paint range, from the Games Workshop range. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the top of it, give it a nice coating. I don't want to be too thick on here. There we go. It's just going to take a couple of seconds to do, and I'm pretty sure this handle's probably going to be metal as well, so I'm just going to go over the top of the brown. With that. Just make sure I get all the sides of these, just to cover the hinges. Now I know they are going to be inside. It's going to be dark in there, you're not going to see it without taking the roof off the stable block when it's done. But it is better to get it painted. And there you go. Let's get it to focus. There we go. And as you can see, the woodwork does look a little bit like wood, and the metalwork as well. So that's it. We're going to call that done. Thank you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I know I did waffle on a little bit at the end while I was doing the last of the dry brushing. But next stages, and I'll just quickly bring it in just to see how this, show you how this looks. But that is just there with the stable block on there, and just to show how it's going to look. And it's not, obviously it's not painted yet, but that's one of the next stages, and then getting the market stalls done. And we might give you a sneak peek on the Facebook page of how it's going to look when it's finished, once it's laid out and everything. But yeah, it's just give the page, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and then we'll let you know when the next video is ready and up. So thanks for your time. We'll hopefully see you again soon.